Hey guys, Nick here, and welcome to my Doctor Strange movie review. Not gonna lie, I didn't think I was gonna be actually seeing this movie or doing a review for it. But I wanted to see this movie because my little brother wanted to see it, and I work at a movie theater, so I see the movie for free anyway. And before I get into my review, kind of preface why I didn't want to see it, because there is a significant amount of controversy surrounding the movie, and the whitewashing of the character of the Ancient One, and how since its roots in mysticism and Strange traveling to the middle to like Asia and studying all these like Eastern things and stuff, that this movie was very whitewashed, and that it's like, of course, it's like the white guy who becomes like the savior of all. He's above all the other the Asian and multicultural beings within that area. So I can understand that criticism, and for a while, especially the casting of the Ancient One more than anything of Tilda, the casting of Tilda Swinton was my biggest gripe with the movie. Considering how the character was, I mean, she was cool and interesting, and I liked her fighting and all of her scenes, but it should have been Tilda Swinton. I think honestly, it was a huge mistake. You could have had a better Asian actress in the role. I'm not saying Tilda Swinton was bad in the role. She was just, it took me out of the film. She should not have been the Ancient One. She's too white. I don't understand why she was the Ancient One. I didn't believe it. I honestly didn't. And I didn't want to see this movie because of that. Because I didn't want to support whitewashing. And it was that trepidation of me not wanting to see that, and not to want to support racism and whitewashing. That's why I didn't want to see this movie. And one of the reasons why I did seeing it is because I see the movie for free. So it's not like my money goes to Marvel or the studios. So that was that. But that aside, I'm not gonna lie, I had fun with the movie. It has its problems. Yes, it's not my favorite Marvel movie, but there's enough in there and that it's unique enough as a Marvel movie that made me walk out saying, you know what, I actually like that movie quite a bit. So to get into what I specifically liked about it, the opening scene, when there's just so you guys know, I will be discussing spoilers in this video. I'm not going to do two separate spoiler-free and non-spoiler reviews, because more than likely, if you're seeing this video, you've probably seen the movie, and if you haven't seen the movie and you're seeing this video, you're going to get some stuff spoiled. I'm not going to hold back, so there's your warning right there. So, I liked, when we saw the villain, Caecilius, at least I think that's how they say his name, running to steal the pages of the book from the Ancient One's library, and the action sequence there, and we were introduced to the kind of crazy trippy visuals from this movie. And I gotta say, the visuals, I think that's the one thing, even the people who didn't love this movie, the visuals are absolutely stunning. It feels very trippy, feels very like Inception-esque in the way you see everything, the way like the cities are colliding and like the mirror dimension and stuff like that. Well, it's like, again, the visuals were amazing, and Scott Derrickson, I thought, did an amazing job with this movie. By the way it was shot, the way he gave us a character who, yes, it's not his character, but in the comics, from what I know, I'm not a reader of Doctor Strange, so I don't know who he is beyond what the movie and trailers and stuff have told me. He's not your typical superhero. He's not a nice guy starting out. He's not the kind of guy you would expect to be a superhero. And he gave us a layered guy who starts out really being an asshole. And when we see him when that really horrific accident happens to him and he loses the ability to really have control of the movement of his hands, you really feel for him in that moment. You still, even though you don't necessarily like the guy as a person, he is a doctor, and he is trying to save lives. And while he's doing it for more selfish reasons, you do sympathize with him when he has that accident, and you believe why he's going through all these things, because his hands are part of the reasons why he's such a successful doctor, and he didn't want to lose that. So in a way, not that I would be able to relate to him, but I thought it was definitely something that made us sympathize with the character, and from there we can be like, okay, now I understand why this character is going to Kamar Taj. And it was there that that's where some of my favorite moments in the movie were. We're seeing Strange learn about the mystic arts and the other dimensions and the multiverse and stuff like that, and seeing all these different trippy dimensions and universes and places like that. Again, seeing the visuals and everything, it was just, this movie is again one of the more unique Marvel movies because for the most part it didn't feel like a Marvel movie. Unfortunately, there was some problems with there's certain jokes that didn't land with me at all. So that was a bit of a disappointment because Marvel movies are known for their funny quippy lines that honestly I'm getting a little tired of, and those are some of my biggest problems with Civil War. Is that like, okay, I'm here to see Civil War, not Tony Stark making a stupid comment every 2 seconds. And in this movie, you have some of those moments of Stephen Strange where he's trying to make a joke just to make a joke, and the jokes don't land. And I don't blame Benedict Cumberbatch. It's just the writing of that it didn't flow well to me. It didn't come off as that hilarious. But again, you're seeing all the stuff in Kamar Taj. Sorry if I'm pronouncing these wrong. I'm reading some of the stuff from the movie on my screen, so that way I don't forget the names. So if I mispronounce them, I apologize. But the whole training sequence and seeing the passage of time and Strange having to come to terms with, he has to surrender himself to really be able to be a sorcerer, to really be able to have the use of his hands, and come to realize that he's not going to have the life he had previously. And I think that's where him as a character really developed from beginning to end. We see him. He started out being a straight-up asshole who was really self-absorbed, and even after his accident for a short time, pushed away, Rachel McAdams' character, and you really saw like that really bad side of him. So going through this journey of him learning about the Mystics Arts and really learning more about himself, to where he comes to terms with with his accident and with even though his hands aren't back to 100%, he accepts his hands in a way. He accepts himself as this newer version of himself. So he's accepting the past and not trying to go back to that. And I thought that was a great thing to have in terms of character development. And I gotta say, Benedict Cumberbatch in this movie, he killed it. And it was a little weird for me because this is the first role I've seen him in a long time. Besides that movie he did, August Osage County or whatever he did. It was a really small movie he did a few years back. And him not having his British accent in the movie, it's something I had to get used to because I'm not used to hearing him with an American accent. But he pulled it off great. There was never a moment where I felt like he didn't pull it off well. And in the role, I thought he played the role of like an asshole really well. And I liked his version of Doctor Strange, even though I don't have any previous knowledge of Doctor Strange besides this movie. I think he did a great job in giving us a character who we can not necessarily relate to, but we can at the end of the day root for, and that he's a smart alecky, self-centered guy. But then he's still, like, even though he is the hero of his story, so you kind of have to, not sympathize with him entirely, but you grow attached to the guy after seeing what he goes through and seeing all of that. And overall, the plot of this movie, to talk about some more things that kind of bothered me, I understood that, I understood going in that the villain wasn't going to be the best. And, I really like Mads Mikkelsen in the role. Then once the ending kind of started to happen with with them going to Hong Kong, going to the final sanctum where Caecilius is he's trying to erupt Dormammu or awaken Dormammu or wherever his whatever the Dark Dimension thing. I really felt that up until that point we actually had a good thing going on with the villain of him coming like back and forth and like trying to like fight all of them. But then when the whole Dormammu thing happened, I'm like, and then like Caecilius is like wiped out like in an instant, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, leading until that point, I liked him, but then he was kind of wiped out super easily. So I'm like, oh, well, okay. There was no real ending with his character, so yes, that was it. So that's where like I liked the villain up until they just killed him off and I understood why they had to kill him off, but to me, I hadn't grown as attached as I would have wanted to. You know what I mean? So that was just, that was that. Let's see. Again, like the action sequences in this movie, all the fight scenes, I thought were all handled well. The fight scenes with the Ancient One and the fight scenes with Doctor Strange, and I loved his cloak of levitation that was like had like a mind of its own. It almost reminds me of like the magic carpet from like Aladdin. It has that kind of vibe to it where it's kind of like they didn't like explicitly do like that sort of thing, but the fact that it was more sentient than we're believed to have realized when he first sees the cloak and the glass encasing. But and just the action sequence were all great. I loved Chiwetel Ejiofor as Mordo in this movie. He gave us like a layered character who, by the end of the movie, even though like I know in the comics he's gonna end up being a villain, the movie is really heavily sets up the fact he's gonna be a villain, especially with that, you know, the end credit scene. You know, again, if you guys haven't already been warned, you know, heavy spoilers here, but when in the credit scene when Mordo visits Pangborn, who we saw earlier in the movie, and that's how Strange learned about Kamar Taj, and Mordo visits him and steals his energy and his ability to walk, and saying that Earth has too many sorcerers. And up until that point, you know, in the movie, when he has that turn of like, you know, because Stephen Strange used time to defeat Dormammu and put himself in that infinite loop of him saying he needs to come and have negotiations or have a bargain. Up until that point, you know, I really felt that we had a really cool character going on. And then by the end of the movie, when we see him, you know, he essentially gives up being, not gives up being a sorcerer, but gives up being a part of, you know, the compound and being a part of the group of sorcerers because they defied the laws of nature, and he's not going to do that. I don't know. That's something I'm not 100% sure I like or not. I may or may not see this movie for a second time, but in that moment, I'm like, I didn't know if I believed that enough, but I'm like, okay. At the moment, I'm like, okay. I mean, in that moment, I'm like, okay. At that point, I knew he was going to be a villain, so that was kind of where I was going with that. But God, what else is there to talk about? Again, the action was great. I didn't love Rachel McAdams because I feel like she was just there to be a love interest, while she was useful in helping Strange. And one thing in her scene, when he's like astral projecting, when you know, after he was stabbed, and he's like astral projecting around her and telling her how to do things, while he's also having a fight with one of Caecilius's men. I thought that was a cool scene. But overall, I feel like Rachel McAdams was underused in this movie, considering she's such a talented actress. And that's why I think Marvel sometimes, like, they get these really, really talented actresses just to make up a love interest and push them to the side for the main hero to, you know, be the main hero. And that's where something I was a little disappointed with. But again, it's a Marvel movie, so I'm not shocked. But again, to wrap up my thoughts, I thought this movie, despite my trepidations about the whitewashing of the Ancient One, and ultimately where they ended up just killing her off like 3/4 into the movie, and I'm just like, at what point, it's like, why did you even get Tilda Swinton if you're just gonna kill her off, you know? And just, I liked the character of the Ancient One. My biggest problem was that you could have gotten a talented Asian actress or actor to portray that character. You didn't have to whitewash the hell out of that character. That's just my biggest problem with this movie. The villain, you know, Caecilius wasn't what I would have wanted to, especially since you have a guy like Mads Mikkelsen, who is a really great actor. And I thought Dormammu and all the visuals of the Dark Dimension and, you know, the astral projection things going on in the Mirror Dimension, all those things were great. Stephen Strange was a really layered character, and Benedict Cumberbatch did an amazing job, in my opinion. The movie has a lot of those like Marvel origin story tropes. They don't take away from my enjoyment of the movie. The visuals are great. The acting was overall great. The jokes, not all of them landed, but I thought a lot of them were good. The characters from Wong to Mordo, to the Ancient One, to Strange, to himself, they're also interesting, and I love the mystical aspect of this movie and the way they visualize the powers and stuff like that, and the spells and the levitating, all that stuff. The visuals of this movie were probably my biggest takeaway from this, and what made it such an enjoyable movie for me. That I'll probably say I can give this movie a solid 7.5 out of 10. Yes, the problems obviously, you know, weren't so overwhelming for me that I couldn't enjoy the movie, but the problems are there, and I can't ignore them. So if I was going to recommend this movie to someone, I would say, you know, besides the whitewashing, I would say it's a good time. You know, I like the fact that it doesn't feel, in essence, like a Marvel movie, even though if you take away the Marvel logo, essentially, it feels like a really good mystical, you know, sorcerer movie, like akin to like the Harry Potter series. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I love the visuals. I love the acting. I love that. One of my favorite things was the mid-credit scene between Doctor Strange and Thor. And Thor, it's dealing with, like, I guess, the events of Thor Ragnarok, when Thor and Loki go into New York to look for Odin, and Doctor Strange essentially says, "I'm going to join you." That was cool. So besides that, all of the visuals, Easter eggs here and there. The Stan Lee cameo, of course. There's so much to enjoy from this movie. Even though I had some problems and didn't like the whitewashing, I thought it was a decent enough time. So for Marvel fans out there, I would say it's a good movie enough to watch. It's a good addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While I didn't necessarily love every aspect of the movie, again, I thought it was a good time. So that's going to be it for me. So what were your guys' thoughts on the movie? If you guys have seen it, sign your thoughts in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for every other video I put up on my channel between trailer reviews, TV show reviews, and movie reviews as well. So that's going to be it for me. So until next time, guys, have a good one.